Welcome back to another episode of the Savvy Founder podcast. Today, we're going to be talking all about why operating your business like a business will change everything. And you might be wondering, what exactly does that mean to have your business operate like a business? And so the best way that I can describe this is actually by kicking this off with a story. So when I first discovered the online service-based space or industry, I was still working in corporate, but I had started to work from home. So I was getting a lot of my time back because I no longer was spending hours commuting every day. And I used the time that I would have been commuting to start learning about online business. I was nonstop watching YouTube videos, listening to trainings, podcasts, reading. Essentially, if there was a resource that was available, I was consuming it. And as I started to piece the different parts together, I started to realize that I needed to do three main things, it seemed like. I needed to create content, and that content would help people find me. I also needed to have a product that I could provide transformation for the people who did decide they wanted to work with me. And I really needed to be able to deliver a high quality service so that I could get repeat customers coming back and they could give referrals and things like that. So I started to fill my time with all of the things that I just mentioned. So I was making content, I was doing some YouTube videos, going live on Facebook. I had a Facebook group at the time, writing captions, posts, emailing my audience. Slowly but surely, the amount of time that I needed in order to quote unquote make progress, it kept increasing. And I remember that the increase was really subtle over time, the way that it was happening. In the beginning, it was just kind of, oh, okay, this is a one-off thing. And I remember telling then he was my fiance, hey, I'm just going to eat at my desk. I just need to finish watching this training. Or, hey, I just need to make a couple more edits to my website, so I'll just catch you later. And this went on for months and months. And the truth was that I wasn't honestly making a lot of progress. I mean, yes, I was learning a ton, and I am someone who is a very avid learner. I love learning. If I could have an entire business just based off of me learning stuff, I would let me do that, please. But in all seriousness, I really loved the process of learning, and I didn't really feel that whole moment of shock. I didn't feel like I needed to slow down or stop that process at all. But the truth is that my results were not matching my efforts. And so over time, I started to realize, oh, okay, something has to be off, because it started to dawn on me that I wasn't really operating my business like a business. I was really just piecemealing these areas together. And I was hoping that eventually the part that would provide relief for me would be when I could hire someone, when I could make enough money so that I can hire either a VA or someone to help me with social media who could pretty much just take it completely off of my plate. And I actually did go through the process of hiring out, and I learned a lot of lessons for that. And so I think I'll dive into that a little bit later in this episode. This is where I really started to see, oh, okay, I thought that I could just do these certain things and that would create a business, but gaps were showing up where I'm doing all these things and it's not really panning out. And so initially I kept hopping from one strategy to another, which I think that a lot of people find themselves making the same mistake. Oh, okay, that didn't maybe work exactly like I wanted it to. So let me just switch things up. And if I had to give you an analogy or a metaphor for this, what I would say this is if you had a house and you started to notice that your floor was creaking. And so what you did is you swept and mopped your floor. That's the equivalent of what I was doing. It's like I wasn't really addressing the root cause at all, but I was doing something that I thought would help maybe, even though obviously it didn't help. So this was the beginning of realizing, oh, okay, there's a different way that you should operate business. This tends to be really obvious, especially when you're dealing with brick and mortar business, or if you've ever been in corporate, there's a definite hierarchy and there's a a way that business operates and it all makes sense. And there's all these different areas and departments and they come together and they create what is the business. But when you are running your business and you're the only person, I think sometimes we kind of miss the importance of what operating like a business really means. So there's this quote that I really appreciate about this, and it's from Lee Iacocca, I believe is how you say his name. And he's most known for the development of the Mustang. And he said, in the end, all business operations can be reduced to 3 words: people, product, and profits. And really, this quote, to me, when I look at it, it really is talking about what is the underlying reason that certain businesses have success when other people don't. And it's highlighting that, yes, there needs to be a focus on building strong relationships. And there's lots of ways to do that. What I mentioned before, content is just one way you can do that. It also talks about delivering quality products and services, but ultimately it needs to be driving profitability. It needs to be contributing to your business being a business. Otherwise, it's just a really expensive hobby that you're developing. And so what I think is like the undertone of that quote that's not said so directly is that there is a really critical role that having efficient and effective operations play in the overall story and the overall process of creating success and, more importantly, creating sustainability in your business. And I think this tends to be missed a lot in the online service-based space. And my theory behind it is that people are really attracted to and love to focus on what I would call the sexy work of business. And it's the things that when you see someone and they're telling you a story of this is what I did, and maybe they're highlighting different parts, there's a certain image that you see with that. So if you think of one of your favorite business owners, just think of a mentor you admire or someone who you really look up to. When you look at them, there's only certain aspects of their business that you are seeing. And those are the ones that I think people are most drawn to replicating and focusing on. And those tend to be what I would call the sexy parts of business. It's you see them show up, maybe you see them on live, you see their curated content, you might see their product and the way that it's laid out. You might see them on coaching calls and the way that they guide their clients through transformation. It's all the front facing things. And oftentimes when we're saying, hey, something's just not clicking, that's what we tend to draw our attention to because it's what we see the most. But really what creates the success of what you see on the front is a lot of unsexy work that happens on the back. For example, messaging is one. It's like behind content, there is messaging. Behind your delivery, there is a trial and error of them learning and refining and doing things when maybe it wasn't as refined as what you're experiencing in this moment. And I think when we can start to really focus on what actually makes it operate fully, we really get to appreciate how everything comes together in this really magical way. That is what we tend to see from people who are very successful. And even when they're not successful, some people demonstrate this anyways, and we tend to believe that they are. But behind the scenes, it's a mess, which is a lot of why people struggle, especially as they grow and as they scale. Because when you think about it, and I was just like browsing on Instagram before this to just see some people who I have seen a lot of posts of, high cash months or, this type of success. But from talking to these people, like literally in the DMs, I know that behind the scenes, a lot of it is a hot mess. It's not an actual business model that you would want to replicate. But of course, that's not what anyone's talking about, right? So this is the place where we're going to get into it, and I'm really excited. So when I think of operating your business like a business, I think of business as a combination of multiple departments, and all of those departments are tied together by the way that the system works. So you can almost think of this as like the engine in your car. It's not that any one part is the thing, they all add to each other, right? And I am not a car person, so I don't even know why I use this as an example, but you just understand, like, there's lots of parts that go into an engine of a car. And so in order for your car to start, when you press the button, there's a lot that goes into making that happen, even though all we want is, I just want my car to start and I just want to go somewhere. But we have to understand that there's a lot that's happening underneath the hood to make sure that that can even work. And it only takes one part not working well to where all of that comes to a screeching halt and you're calling a tow truck and needing to get your car fixed, right? And the same happens in business as well. And I think actually the bigger that you get, and as you really start to scale, especially around the like 6-figure mark and beyond, is when, if you have these areas that are still gaps, that's where it really starts to become a bigger issue, because you start to have the limitation is you, because you're doing a lot of these things manually because your business isn't operating like a business. So you don't have systems, processes, and things in place. And so, like I said, there's these different key areas of your business that you have. You have marketing, you have sales, you have your backend system that runs all of those things together, that makes sure that your clients get onboarded when they need to, that make sure that they're getting access to what they need to, and that payments are going through. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes that I think a lot of people don't see. When we can start to focus on the back end parts of your business, when that part is running smoothly without you having to manually do each and every part of that, that is when you start to really experience what I'm going to call it freedom. And I understand that freedom is something that almost every single person would interpret very differently, but that's when you start to experience a freedom that I think people imagine when they go to create a business. However, like in my example that I shared earlier, obviously a lot of us get caught in the trap of doing more because we're trying to get to a new place. And I think that it can be a little bit deceptive the way that we do that, because we get stuck in this temporary hustle trap, which is when we really have a place that we want to go and we think that we're just in this temporary season of needing to do more and maybe sacrifice things that really we don't want to sacrifice just in order to get ahead. But it rarely is actually as temporary as people believe when they initially start that season. And so when you start to change the way that you operate your business from this, I'm doing everything myself and I'm piecing together the parts that I see or the strategies that I've been told, and you start to focus on, but what's actually keeping this running? What happens when you don't wake up and you start taking action? Is everything still moving? And when you start to build out systems that will allow you to do that, everything changes, because you're no longer focusing on, this is the action, this is the task I need to do, and without this, nothing is moving forward, to now you have it where people who are interested in your services, they can still start moving forward in your process, whether that is a funnel or something else. Or you will start to have clients who have already paid and are able to get fully onboarded, sign contracts, book times with you without you having to be there. And I don't know about you, but something that I really, really enjoy is having time away and being unplugged. If you're into human design, I'm a projector, so this is very stereotypical, I think, when it comes to that modality and what I fall under. But all that to say that I really enjoy, like right now we're at the time of recording this, we are getting into the spring season, and where I currently live, this is the beginning of hiking season, and I am obsessed with hiking, and I really love finding new places to explore. And this season is really special too, because it's going to be the first season where we have our little one with us, and so it's really cool to be able to make those memories. And I just think back to where I was not that long ago, when I would be sitting at my desk for hours trying to figure out what's wrong, just trying to do a couple more things, just trying to make a few more tweaks, making everything manual. I remember I had someone actually in that time frame who signed up for one-on-one coaching with me, and it was literally she agreed that, yes, I want to move forward. And I remember I had to go and make the checkout page at the time. And then after that, I was going back and forth with her. We were trying to figure out time zones, and she was in Australia. So it was like, okay, when in my evening does it work where I'm not working? And then from there, we had to set up the call, and I was doing everything so manually. And even as we were in that container, I kept losing track of how many sessions we had left. It was such a lesson learned because at the time, my main focus was, yes, I just want to deliver a high quality service. And if this is what it takes, I'm willing to do the work. But it took a while for me to have this realization. And this is what I really hope that you're getting from this episode, that it doesn't take you having to be chained to your desk, you having to be on your phone 24/7 to have the business that you really want to have. But it does take you taking time to slow down and set up the operations in your business. Another really big example of how I noticed the switch of when operations really started to make a difference for me is I actually did hire help. And it was in a season where work was really busy. Like I said, I was working full time. And I was showing up quite a bit on social media. I had hired someone to help me with social media, like a coaching program to do that. And it was just getting to the point where we were starting to do shifts again at work. So I was working 12 hours at the time. And I didn't want to have a season where I wasn't showing up for my audience because I knew how challenging it could be from no activity going back into activity. And I was like, oh, but I already have momentum. How do I keep this going? And so I hired help, and it was pricey help. Let's just say that. It was pricey help that I had hired. And really my expectation when I went into it was just like, this is such a problem for me. I just need them to come and save me from it and we can move forward, which was always a dream all along, right? Back when I was really diving into the business, I was like, okay, eventually there's a lot of these things that I'm just having to do manually. I understand this is just what it has to be. That's what I thought. And so I just have to wait until I can hire someone. So I got some help, and it did not work out the way that I thought. It was not the results that I really wanted to have, yet I was paying this money, and I was racking my mind around it because I remember thinking, why is this not working? I really thought that, all I needed to do was hire someone. And it was just another example of me seeing that it's not about just hiring someone, because the truth is, without existing processes that you use and that are already proven in your business, it creates more of an issue a lot of times when you just hire someone to quote unquote fix it for you, because one, they're not you, and two, they're not really set up for success. And so while I wanted to be really frustrated with the service, I had to be honest with myself and think about, I didn't really give them a great blueprint for them to be able to execute at a high level on what I really needed them to do. I was just trying to throw money at the problem. And I think that happens more often than not. I think it happens sometimes with strategy hopping and things like that, where it's just, okay, maybe if I can just pay to have this problem go away. And I think sometimes that can work, but most times it does not work. And it doesn't work because the foundation that they would need in order to create success doing whatever you've hired them to do is not there. And that was just another example of where I saw, oh man, the importance of having key operations, of having processes, of using technology in my business is really where I have to start before I can even get to the point of just trying to randomly outsource and hope that it works. From that, I started to make the parallels between corporate and how they operate and what keeps the business going, and how is it that you can have people come in who haven't done a specific role before and they're able to learn and catch up and apply what they do know to being successful. And in corporate America, you have standard operating procedures, you have training documents, you have methods, processes that need to be done for specific roles. You have a way of doing business. It's not when a new person is hired to come into a corporate setting they are completely redefining what the entire company is doing. Like, yes, there are consultants and those are like one-off things, but I mean, just hiring a role so that they can be a helping hand. I think a lot of times it's not that revolutionary. Yet in business, I think a lot of owners don't really want to take the time to set that foundation, and they're really just hoping to have that unicorn hire, that unicorn VA or person to come in and manage their business. And hopefully that person doesn't randomly leave during a critical launch or things like that. And so when I think about how do you actually foolproof your way into a business that will continue to operate at whatever level you have established without it wavering down the line as you start scaling, it's really about operating your business like a business. Have your processes in place, have systems in place in your business so that when you are at a point of hiring someone, that you're able to plop them into your business in a place where they can be successful and you actually are getting the help that you need versus you paying them to do a role that you have not even really defined and then finding yourself disappointed or frustrated with the way that they have decided to do it. And so I think a lot of this is actually a conversation of how is it that you lead your business. And I don't know if enough people really think about this enough, especially because they're not forced to when you're the only one operating in your business, right? It's easy to avoid that conversation, but when you start to want to add people in, it becomes way, way more important to do that. If you are ready to start operating your business like a business, I am actually hosting a masterclass in April called Sales in Your Sleep, where I will be sharing and breaking down the process and funnel that I shared with my clients that has helped them to generate sales in their sleep, which is a great first step for you when you are refining how you do operations and how you really start to optimize the back end of your business. So just check out, the link is in the show notes, and it's going to be really awesome. I can't wait to share it with you. It's something that's really valuable that I really wish I would have known much, much sooner. And if you've enjoyed this episode, then go ahead and rate this podcast and give me some feedback on what you really enjoyed. I would love to hear from you, and I will see you in the next episode. Stay savvy.